Hey, this is your Made Free Life podcast with your host, Shawn, where we have weekly conversations about faith, freedom, and adventure. All right, we're back to another episode of the Made Free Life podcast with my good friend, Travi the Rabbi. And hopefully, man, everybody's had a good turkey day. How about you?
Oh, yeah, we're looking at Christmas-ish. You know, it's right in the crosshairs. It's coming up.
It's another turkey or what?
I think what do they do?
Ham?
Yeah. Ham. I eat it all.
You eat it all?
It's my spiritual gift.
That's mine too. I'm an eater. I'm an eater. Yeah, we had a good one, man. We had a lot of family over. And we had that kind of Thanksgiving where I'm in a blended family now with my girlfriend. And so I had people I hadn't been around, and some of them was a little awkward. And so I had to work through that. Like, you know that's going to be the theme for the rest of well, hopefully. So you got to get used to being around people that you don't really know. And
yeah, I've been locked in for 25 years.
So you got the same awkward people.
Yeah, like I broke the ice when I met my wife's family. The very first time I came over, they introduced me. True story. So yeah, I had to use the bathroom. And I was 19 years old. I didn't know anything. And
at 19 or about using the bathroom?
Well, at 19. And I clogged the toilet.
No, you didn't. You did. What was that movie? Along Came Polly.
No.
You're like, oh my God, no.
The water.
Please, Jesus,
yeah,
pray.
The water's rising, and I'm not kidding. I mean, you know the theme music for Jaws. And it's rising, and
you're trying to pray it away. Please, God, I'll serve you all the days of my life.
Yeah, I'm like, my heart's pounding. And I don't know to turn the water valve off at this time.
Yeah.
And dude, it
did.
Like,
you did do it?
Yeah, it all went over.
So you just took a healthy one?
Yeah. Oh. I did. And so I had to go out in the living room, and I'm like, y'all got any towels?
So how was that? You just asked for towels?
Yeah, they knew I was a keeper after that. It was a mess.
Oh, man.
Yeah, one of those moments, like first time.
So you feel like you broke through all, there's nothing.
Oh yeah, there was
nothing could be awkward.
Like nothing awkward, nothing embarrassing, everything is good. It's like, hey, Travis is coming over. It's like, well, he's not using my toilet. I know one thing. You better make sure he goes.
Oh, he's going to go to the guest bathroom.
Yeah, 19 years old, and that was my first, hello, here I am.
Mine wasn't that bad, so I feel blessed. But as I was thinking about the holidays, and me and you were sharing before we got set up here, I had a moment I was telling you as I was driving in, like just a picture of Shane and a song, if I would have known, and it just hit me really hard thinking about the holidays, and for many know that my son was taken a couple years ago, and I just started thinking what an opportunity we could have to just kind of talk about grief, loss, like how do we manage it? It's inevitable. It's part of this life.
Life's terminal.
It's life's terminal. That's terminal experience.
Yeah, they're alive.
We're all born to die, and we're different stages of that. You're further than me.
No,
I'm not.
You're older.
I'm not much older. Though.
That's the thing. You started dying before.
It's true. But we both have lost a child, and you're a little further along than me. I just know there's going to be some Christmases coming up with a lot of people out there, man, that are going to have that one person, whether it was a grandma, grandpa, or somebody, uncle and aunt that's no longer with them, and just I thought it'd be a good opportunity to talk about that, like what that looks like.
Yeah. Well, the truth is they might not be there, but they are somewhere.
Yeah.
It isn't that they don't cease to exist; they just cease to exist in the capacity that we're used to. And so grief it's a part of life. Trauma, it's a part of life, and especially when it comes to holidays. Statistically, like this is the most suicides are during this time of year. And so maybe you know, you see people celebrating and you can't connect or identify with that because maybe you did, you know, lose a loved one. Maybe that individual, that person that was normally a staple there in your life is no longer there. Maybe you lost the job, you lost the career, the marriage fell apart.
Yeah, because grief can be so many things. Loss is loss.
Right, loss is loss.
And it's relevant.
And it is. And so no matter what you're going through, what you're grieving, let me just say this, there is good griefs.
Yeah.
God designed grief for us to go through.
Yeah.
Where we run into it being very toxic or unhealthy is when we don't go through it and we try to build a life in it.
Yeah.
And so as
we're never meant to stay there.
No.
But I do think that, there's always going to be a component or a stage of that until we're, reunited with that person.
Sure.
There's always going to be that, like I feel like I'm in the best place I've been in a long time, managing the loss of my son, who was very close to me. Heck, I consider him one of my best friends. And so it's been such a difficult thing for me to just picture doing life again without him. And having to be forced to do that is very difficult, because my son was taken at the hands of another individual. He was murdered. It wasn't an accident. He didn't, die, unexpectedly. I mean,
right.
He died unexpectedly, but it was something that, it's been a very difficult, tragic thing for me to process. But nonetheless, I say that to say this, that I'm healthier today, and I'm learning to become more healthy every day with that, because I know that's what he would want.
Sure.
And I think the best way to honor Shane is for me to live a life that would glorify God, and that would be helping others, and that would bring him honor.
Well, learning how to fight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Learning how to fight, knowing what to fight, knowing how to bring honor to, that lost loved one. Knowing how to navigate that is so important. And I'm fortunate that I learned it at, a relatively young, early stage.
Yeah.
Like, hey, we want to run to substance. We want to run to things to numb our pain, to numb our trauma. Yeah, to try to
check out.
Like, to try to forget about it and try to, but the reality is the way that we
I think it's natural too.
Oh, yeah.
Some people maybe out there, you're watching and you haven't had a background in substance abuse or some of those things, but we do medicate. We do check out. Some of you, it could be, watching 37 episodes of Netflix, whatever it's going to do to temporarily take you out of that space of processing the reality of the grief or the loss. And so we do it through eating. We do it through, we can do it through work.
Yeah,
we could become just, a workaholic. We've heard that term. We can become materialistic, relationally. Yeah.
I've found that, you can succeed in one area, especially as men, and then it's other areas it's falling apart. So your money might be right, but your marriage is not tight yet. You know what I mean? And so it comes from trying to deal with pain, trauma, grief, and a very carnal, and a very way that you might not know how to deal with grief. But the reality is, at the end of the day, when we bring our grief to God, He helps us manage it and heal from it.
That's right.
And so knowing where to run to.
Yeah, that's good.
Knowing how to fight, knowing that every day that I get up and I glorify God with my life. Yeah. I serve the Lord. I love well. I just try to go out and be Jesus to someone. And the truth is every time I do that, man, I am kicking the enemy in the teeth. That's how you fight the good fight. And let me just say this, and I've told you this in private, is dude, we got a responsibility to live their life through ours.
Right.
Yeah. We don't get to just go and mess up our life, because it isn't just about our life anymore.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I really embraced, was okay, my 2-year-old is no longer here. She didn't get an opportunity to marry. She didn't get an opportunity to learn how to ride a bike. She didn't get an opportunity, all these things that, man, really just traumatized me. And so at the end of the day, because she didn't get this opportunity, I'm going to take an opportunity with my life to make her life mean something. And the only way that I can do that is when I bring it to Jesus.
Yeah.
And I start living my life out of that. And then all of a sudden, her life means something, my life means something, because we connected it not just to doing life,
To the
but
larger
the
story.
life, right?
Yeah.
To the life.
Yeah. And, you know, and that is true, Travis. It is the only way that we bring glory to a situation so tragic as Brooklyn drowning in a pool, Shane being murdered. It is that we give our life for something greater than ourselves.
Greater than ourselves.
And that's to others. And so, you know, I think that when we give our lives to service to God and we live a life that would exemplify that, I think that is part of the grieving. I think that is part of the healing. It's part of that restoration that God does, because I find when I take myself out of my own situation, and I start to put my attention and my compassion and cares on others, it kind of pulls me out of my little pit or my little, you know, momentary, you know, whatever it is, little dark space or place. And it helps me to understand that, number one, I'm not the only one, because I think the enemy's good at isolating us. You're the only one. No, there's a lot of trauma and tragedy in this world. There's a lot of pain, a lot of hurt, and way worse things that could happen to a family, even as much as having a murdered child. But when I start to take myself out of that and take myself objectively, like I like to kind of stand out and look into it, I realize I'm not the only one, first. And secondly, there's a lot more things that are happening on a grand scale that is way worse than what I'm dealing with. And it starts to help me kind of pick up the pieces
and finding those Me Too people.
Yeah.
You know, that's one of the things in my trauma. I can remember that summer day when it happened. I had to go and find someone that had been through what I'd been through, and I knew I happened to not just the individual that I went and sat down to. He was an older sage. I mean, godly man, and I never put like really two thoughts to it until I lost my child. And then all of a sudden it was like, wow, this man has lost 2 children.
I remember that.
And I said, I've got to sit down at a table and look him in his eyes and say, how do we do this?
Right.
How do we do, like, how did, like, I see a man that's full of joy, that's serving the Lord. Like, you would never know the details of losing not just one, but 2 children, and here he is at church every Sunday, front row, joy of the Lord. And I had to sit down with him to have a Me Too moment, because I needed to connect with somebody that had already been where I was getting ready to go.
Sure.
And how are we going to deal, you know, how do we deal with it? And that was one of my questions, was how do we deal with this? And he looked me in the eye and he said, it hurts. It's painful. He goes, but I don't have any other answer for you than the answer of Jesus.
Yeah.
He goes, I wish I could, you know.
Right, give you a formula.
Yeah, he's like, but I'm telling you, he's like, you're not going to make it without him. But
it's imperative, I think, that we find and seek out that person. You know, like for me and you know, fortunately we're best friends, and we both share that. We both drink from that cup. Yeah. And, you know, I was there for you, but I hadn't experienced that. And it was just Jesus that I was able to be with you and kind of pastor that situation. But then when it happened to me, you had already been through it. And I think that's what made it really special for me, was that, you know, it wasn't something I read in a book or watched on 60 Minutes. You know, I had a very close friend.
Yeah, I knew not to say crap.
Yeah.
Like the power of presence. Just being there.
I remember that. You slid in on me and put your arm around me that morning and said, I'm here, man.
Yeah, it was I'm here. There's no pep talk. There's no scripture that I'm going to give you. Hey, listen, we're going to pound sand. We're going to cuss and kick the dog because I'm mad with you and I'm hurting with you. You know, like Paul says, I'm going to weep when others weep and rejoice when others rejoice. And so having that Me Too moment, I don't have the words that are going to fix this. Right. I don't have the capacity to heal this, but I do, within my power, have the ability to be present, to let you know that you're loved and you're valued, and you can connect with me and have a Me Too moment. Man, that's what people are looking for. Yeah. They're not always looking for you to fix them or give them step 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. They're just wanting to experience the power of your presence, to know that they matter, that their situation matters, and that you're willing just to invest the time to be there, to love them, to hug them, to cry with them, to rejoice with them, to be there doing the journey together.
And I think so many of us, we mean well when we jump out there with, you know, like you said,
Romans 8:28. Gotta work off. There's a place
there's a genuineness in a lot of people to want to do that, because we do all know that God is the answer to our brokenness. But in those moments, that's the last thing a grieving parent really wants to hear.
Well, they're not receiving.
We're just so in like, I don't know, we're in a matrix of like, is this reality? Are we really facing this? Is it real? Like for a long time, I don't know, for you, for me.
Oh yeah.
I mean, sometimes it still doesn't seem real.
Oh no. You wake up and it's like you're expecting them to come running, walking through the door.
Father's Day, I'm expecting a text.
Call,
I'm expecting, Dad can borrow me some money. Can I borrow some money? There's just always this expectation of I'm going to hear from him again. And I know the reality is I won't. But I think it's in those moments, like you said, it's the power of presence. I think people don't really understand how powerful that is. You just coming along somebody and being with them in their darkest moment, their most painful moment, speaks louder than anything you can say. It's just, hey, I'm here. I love you. What can I do? Like you said, I remember holding you and crying with you and you crying with me, and we didn't have a lot of words. It was just a raw emotion. It was just feeling.
There's no manual on.
Yeah, there really isn't. No, there is
nothing prepares you for.
No, I just think it's called showing up.
Yeah.
I think you show up for people, and that's what I've done as a pastor, and you've done, is I've showed up hundreds and hundreds of times for people in their darkest hours, and I think that's what we're called to. And I think when we continue to do that on this subject of grief and loss, I think it's what brings healing and wholeness to our souls. It's what gives me restoration, is knowing I can show up for that family member, or show up for that person who's addicted, or show up for this person who's just suffered loss. Maybe that loss is a marriage. Maybe that, that person woke up today and their spouse said, hey, I don't want to do this no more. And it's been 35 years of living together and doing life with somebody. And to them, it feels like death. It feels like they can't make it another step, another moment. And it's just being there for them in that moment, not having the answers to their marriage or what they need to do about their separation or divorce or any of those things, but just saying, hey, I'm here. I'm showing up in that moment,
Yeah. And the truth is that we try to encourage people to do this life, this like journey together.
Yeah.
Because people aren't just looking for a friendly face; they're looking for a friend. Somebody that will,
that's good,
that will shepherd them, that will be there for them, that will be an ear whenever they need to vent. And connecting with people in such a way that you can like really navigate them to a place to where it's well in their soul. Because this is what happens, and I've seen it happen to so many people. They live a life of regret.
Yeah.
And you've got to be intentional about fighting regret.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, from the time, I sat there with the images from that Saturday. I regretted, why didn't I just stop and run over there and grab my child and put her on the mower with me?
Right.
Why did I just, all the what ifs,
I have them, man.
But at the end of the day, you can't live in a place of regret. And that word regret, and it's fascinating that the word regret in the Latin means to re-grieve.
Wow.
And so God's never called us to a place to re-grieve.
Yeah.
And many people, if you're listening today, that you can get trapped in a life of regret to where you never heal or move past the actual event. You relive it. You re-grieve it, re-grieve it, re-grieve it, re-grieve it.
Wow.
And when you do, what you do is you don't pass through the valley of the shadow of death.
Yeah.
You build a life
there.
You build a life in it, and it is so toxic, and it's so unhealthy, and it's not God's design and God's best. So relationships, this is where relationships come into play. That God has designed us to do life together. Because you will not escape this world without pain, trauma, setbacks, heartbreak. And so in relationships, we can move together. That way we do not build a life re-grieving and regretting, looking in the past, but we can look to our future because let me just say this, God's plan is a good plan. Right. You might not see it now, but it is. It's a good plan to give you a future and a hope. Yeah, here's the thing, though. We want to know the plan.
Yeah, we
Show me the plan. When it says God has the plan. He knows the plan, not us. Yeah. And so at the end of the day, man, those relationships are so vital in somebody getting healing. Now, I don't know.
They are.
Yeah, I don't know what relationship you need to cultivate to help someone find their place to where they move out of the land of regret and re-grieve and move into a land to where it can start to begin to be well in their soul, because that's God's best.
But we do know that they need them. And, you know, and that's what I was going to say. You know, there's so many times that I said to you and other friends in my circle, my small circle of trusted, loved people, that I said, man, I regret the last thing I said to Shane was this, or I didn't do this, and this. And, you know, as those relationships that said, Shawn, man, he loved you. He knew his love for you, you know, your love for him. He knew how much he meant to you. And it's though, because in that moment of hopelessness and in that moment of darkness and that moment of despair, you know, you feel like everything is so surreal, and like the imagination of what you have, you are, you know, you got the enemy on you, man. He's painting that picture. Oh, this is what it is. It's really imperative that you have those relationships that bring clarity, that bring truth, that are able to step outside of that moment and look in and say, Shawn, this is what I know about Shane. This is what I know about you. This is what I know about y'all's relationship. And those things were not only vital for me to heal and grow, but those were the things that actually started to change the trajectory of where I went from a hopeless, dark, you know, desperate place to, man, you know what, there's truth, and that truth began to, you know, almost be like a catalytic change for me to begin to go into a direction of health and wholeness, because no longer was I going to be captivated by the lies of the enemy and my re-grieving it over and over by regret after regret after regret, but it was, you know what, I've had enough. I know the truth, and the truth will set me free, and in that truth, I'm going to begin to live out my life in light of that truth.
At some point, just like the prodigal son, he came to himself.
Yeah.
You know, at some point, there's got to be a coming to self and realizing, hey, I've got to get to the one that can offer hope and offer healing. And maybe this Christmas season, maybe you can push aside all the commercialization, the gifts, and all the things that kind of distract us from the true meaning of Christmas. And the true meaning of Christmas is that we don't do life alone, that God loved us.
Yeah.
Emmanuel, he's with us. Yeah, he's with us. He's for us. He loves us. And so this Christmas, maybe it can bring hope and a reminder that whatever you're going through, whatever grief, whatever loss, whatever trauma, that you don't have to do it alone, that the gift of Christmas is the gift of God himself stepping into your darkness, stepping into your pain, stepping into your trauma, so that you can get to a place to where it's well in your soul. And I hope we don't forget that this Christmas, as far as when we look at, you know, everything that goes on around it, that we truly do remember that he is the gift, and he keeps on giving, and he's for us, and he loves us.
Man, come on, somebody. Thanks again, man, for being on the show. I appreciate it.
You got it.
And we just want to say to our family, to yours, man, we hope this holiday season, in spite of maybe the tremendous loss and the reality of what you're dealing with and grieving, that, you know, that there is light at the end of the tunnel. There is hope. There is healing. There is restoration. But I think there's some steps we got to take. There's some things we got to do. And I think one of that, man, is getting in relationship with people, get some people around your ladder that love you and that are willing to do life with you and get into the dark places and spaces, man. God bless you.